welcome to the Mastering Social Media for Schools podcast. If you do social media for K-12 schools, you're in the right spot. We've been doing this for over 5 years. This is crazy. Every week we drop a new episode, and I've got a special guest today from higher ed. Chanda Gilmore is an instructor at the University of Delaware. And she was at the NSPRA National Seminar this summer in Washington, D.C. And she did a breakout session that had rave reviews. And I'm like, Chanda, you need to be on my podcast. So today's the day. I'm so excited for you to meet her. She is an instructor with their strategic communication and public relations programs, both undergrad and graduate. So she's going to talk a little bit about her journey into the role as an instructor. And she's a mom of 5 kids. And so she really relates to social media for schools. She's going to break down some of the tips that she shared on social media engagement. These are tips that you don't always hear from me. They are very amazing tips, and so I can't wait for you to hear them. She's going to talk about some engagement tips and strategies just on, there's not really a magic bullet, you guys. You have to kind of try things. And then we're going to get into what are schools getting right and what are schools getting wrong when it comes to social media. So very excited. You're going to learn throughout this interview. But before we get to that interview or the K-12 PR tip, which is very important because there's an update that I want you to listen to. I just want to share, one of the pieces of advice for staying on top of engagement is just knowing what's working for schools. And here at Social School for EDU, we are very focused on giving a lot of free tips through this podcast, through our blogs, through our biweekly newsletter, out on our social media platforms. But we also have this really special community. It's called our membership group. And that is a training platform, templates, all of these things that are available for our member schools. And Julie recently joined the membership group. And she's been in social media for a while. She's doing a great job. And we just asked, what made you sign up and join this community now? And she replied, good question. I'm always looking to level up. And when I started up the Facebook page back in the beginning, it didn't take much to stand out from the crowd. Now there's a lot of good work out there, and I don't have time to go search for it. Your group condenses the best of the best. Plus, you're talking about the kinds of issues, ADA, policies, etc., that I want to know more about, but that I don't have time to research on my own. Julie, you said it so well. Just want to invite you, if you're on the fence, thinking about it, we really do try to make social media a lot easier, saving you time because we know that social media isn't the only thing that you do. And it is harder today to stand out. There's a lot more noise. And so why not get to the strategies that work best? So we hope that you'll consider joining Julie and hundreds of schools across the country and beyond that are part of our membership group. You can learn more over at socialschoolforedu.com. Now, let's get to today's K-12 PR tip. All right, Facebook just made an update on one of their metrics, and it is on reach. They have changed the term reach to viewers. Okay, which I personally like because I think it really explains it well. But when you go into your metrics on Facebook, there's views and then there's viewers. I have historically taught you to look at viewers or the reach of your posts. And I just want to break down the difference between views and viewers. Okay. So views is something that Facebook really highlights because it's the big number. And views talks about impressions. Basically, how many times your post was seen. So that means the same person can count multiple times every time they scroll past it. So you got to think total eyeball moments. Okay. So that is views. Now, viewers are about individual accounts. How many unique people saw your content. Each person is only counted once, no matter how many times they saw it, the piece of content, or if you're looking at your metrics over a given time period, let's say 7 days or a month's time frame, that one person that saw at least one of your posts would only be counted once. So you've got to think of viewers as your total number of people reached. Okay. So that is viewers versus views. So if you have traditionally been tracking reach on Facebook, which, by the way, Meta owns both Facebook and Instagram, they did not change the Instagram metric to viewers. Instagram still says reach, okay? But Facebook says viewers, okay? So just note that. But if you've traditionally tracked a number called reach, that number is now called viewers, okay? I've got a great little tip on how to find those viewers. If you are looking at your metrics, I will link that in the show notes so you can take a look at that and just find out where to find that on your app, on your phone, and on your desktop. But just wanted to make sure you were aware of that name change. That's why we hang out together. We got to keep up, right? Now let's get into an amazing conversation about engagement on social media, which impacts how many viewers and views that you have on your social media content for your school, with Chanda Gilmore. Let's get started. I am so excited. We've got a special guest today from higher ed, which is really exciting. Good morning, Chanda.
Good morning.
I'm so blessed that you are here joining us on the podcast today from the University of Delaware. So, welcome to the show. Why don't you kind of share your background and then your role as instructor and strategic communication and public relations there at the University of Delaware?
Hey, well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this. As you said, I'm an instructor of strategic communication and public relations at the University of Delaware, and I teach both in our undergraduate PR concentration as well as our master's of strategic communication that's fully online. So I do get the best of both worlds. And my courses really focus on campaign planning, public relations writing, and of course, social media. And my background, I've spent the past 15 years in higher education teaching in different PR undergraduate programs, helping students really learn the skills and techniques needed in our industry, and spent the past 20 years in the PR industry. Really, it's very funny. My journey started with social media, if you can remember back in the day of MySpace and wiki boards. And I actually worked for a nonprofit when I first graduated from Hood College back in 2004. And I remember wiki boards were what every business and organization wanted. And it was funny. I was like, well, what is a wiki board? And they're like, I don't know, but we need it. And that was kind of my launch and foray into social media. And it really showed me how important it is for students to understand these platforms and understand the best practices for them.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's going back a little bit. I love the fact that you just said we don't even know what they are, but these businesses thought they needed them. Because I think in some cases today it's still like a new social platform comes out and everybody at like a school is like, we need to be there. And it's like, okay, hang on. Like maybe we don't need to be
Yes,
everywhere, right?
everybody wants blue sky now. And I'm
Yeah.
always like, okay, so what's blue sky? And they're like, I don't know, but we need it.
Yeah, yeah. And we only have so many hours in the day, so that can be challenging. Really interested in just the fact that you teach public relations and some of the strategic communication. Um, do you help with folks that are definitely planning maybe and getting into schools ever, or are they mainly, going out with degrees in PR or communications that are going to plan to take the business world or business route? What would you say?
I would say most of our undergraduate students are looking into the industry and they are coming into the industry with some idea of what direction, whether they do want to go into the, I would say, traditional PR, media relations, or really going into social media directions. What's nice also is that we do have the Masters of Online. So when people decide to come back to get more education, because with those courses, they're more focused and specialized. So I teach a course on social media campaigns where I do actually have students work with an organization to develop a social media campaign, limited because we only have 7 weeks. But I do see that combination where they want to go into the industry, they go into the industry, but at the same time, they're coming back for those certifications and masters for that more detailed, nuanced information.
Okay. And just the requirements for going into that master's program. I mean, an undergraduate, like a 4-year undergraduate degree would be sufficient. Because I'm just thinking my listeners, they may be interested in taking their skill
Yeah.
set to the next level.
So for our master's program, really, we are looking for, of course, an undergraduate degree. And I wouldn't say it has to be in communications. It can really be in anything. The minimum GPO have graduation of 3.0 and professional references.
Okay.
That's it, because we design our master's program really for the working professional, with them either making the switch into more of a social media role, more of a PR campaign development role, and they just need the extra courses, the extra knowledge when it comes to social media campaigning, what it really means to do strategic communication writing. And how to vary it up. So those are where those courses really focus on, and they're all practical based. You won't see where you have to take a big test at the end. We actually have a capstone course that I teach right now where I'm like, okay, you have 7 weeks to develop a campaign. It could be a crisis communication campaign. It could be a campaign for a special event. It could be social media over the 18 months, and it's fully online. So it's meant for the working professional. So it's not something where you have to move or rearrange your life. It's 100% online. But we design it so you are building a portfolio, you're building your skill set of what's needed now. I kind of joke that I have to redesign my social media campaign class that I just redesigned literally a year ago, because so much has changed. And that's the point, is we're trying to keep it updated. We're trying to keep it fresh. So we are giving you that knowledge and skills. Like I said, there are so many platforms out there.
Yeah.
What is the best platform for your organization, for your voice? And I don't say brand, I say voice. And
Okay.
that's a key distinguishment I like to teach. And I like to say, part of social media, we're all about humanizing the brand. But part of humanizing, you have to recognize we as humans have a voice. So
Yeah.
what is your voice?
Yeah. As hard as it is for me and all the listeners who are doing social media all the time and everything changes, it's really stressful. I can't imagine Chanda being you who has to keep up with the changes and then is teaching, some of those changes. So that's crazy. Well, we met recently this past summer in Washington, D.C. You presented at NSPRA. Tell me about the session that you actually did at NSPRA.
Yes, so I had a very long title because in education we put everything into the title so they know what they're talking about. But essentially, I wanted to provide it 6 really strong tips for social media relationship marketing for greater engagement. Long title. But really, I wanted my session to focus on 6 social media relationship marketing practices to help schools build greater engagement with their audiences. How did I get to 6? I actually had 12, but I only had 30 minutes for the presentation. I went down to 3, and then it was, but I have to add this. And I really came to 5, but the 6th one was metrics. And you have to talk about metrics.
Yeah.
When you talk about engagement, when you talk about social media and you talk about business, you have to talk about metrics. But I wanted to give them these tips that they could walk away from with an idea whether or not they wanted to actually get involved in engagement strategies as part of their social media plan.
Okay. And it came highly recommended. I didn't get to attend the session. I was at the vendor booth, and so that was challenging to be able to out to all of the sessions. But can you give us a teaser to a few of the tips that you shared during that session then for our listeners?
Of course. So my number one tip I always start with is listen before posting. Listening helps anticipate concerns and respond more effectively. And I always say it starts with the ears and not the keyboard. It's not about getting involved in the conversations, even though you may want to. It's really about going to the platforms you're active on. What is being said? And it's not just going to your Facebook account, your Instagram account. Go check out those mom groups. Go check out those parenting groups. Go see what is being said about your organization. What is the tone? What is the feeling? Because that can give you an idea of the type of engagement you need to do. And this goes to my second point with engage with purpose. Engagement is a conversation. It's not just changing your post up instead of doing a static image. Now we're going to do a video. It's more than that. There's a purpose behind that video. You want a conversation. It's a conversation starter. Do you want them to share the video? Do you want them to comment on the video? What do you want them to do? What is the purpose that you're doing? That's where I say engage with a purpose. And my next two, I really advocate. I'll do my top four, but the other two, they kind of relate. And the first one, that is humanize your district. People remember people, not policies. The strongest posts that most school districts do get are the ones that feature people, are the ones that aren't about, hey, the 2 hour delay, or hey, school's canceled, or hey, there's something going on. The ones that really engage are the ones that show people, that show the voice, that show the humanity of your district, which goes to my next one, they're kind of equal, is personalizing your voice. Um, Let your tone reflect your community's heart and personality. Again, what works for one district may not work for another. I have learned that I've worked with both school districts, charter schools, working now with a wonderful private school. And I will say, though they have similar techniques and strategies, it's really different because their voice is different. How they approach it is different. So really, what is your voice? And personalize it. Consider it really another staff member, a person of the department.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love these. Listen before posting, engage with purpose. Like, what do you want people to do? I think that's really important. That humanization of your district and then personalizing your voice, which are related but are different. And I
They
definitely
are.
I definitely agree with you. I'm prepping for a presentation, and some of my listeners are from really big school districts, and so they have a district channel, but then they may have school channels, and some of them I see on their district channel, they're just sharing news, and I mean like reminders,
Yeah.
just like bulletin board items, and it's you just speak to it so well of like you got to humanize your district. You have to put faces in there because that's really what people relate to, right?
Mm-hmm. It's almost like, how are you treating your social media platforms, as an afterthought or really as another conversation starter?
Yeah.
um, where are we as our publics and our audiences? We're on social media, but it's very different where we are. I'm going to date myself, but the parents in their 40s and 30s, we're on Facebook still. Facebook is still our number one. And I don't understand 6, 7. I don't understand Riz and some. Yeah, I don't understand that. But that generation is on Instagram. And it's interesting, when we were looking at some of the data points, most of students follow on Instagram, X, and TikTok, but they follow their teachers. They follow their individual schools. They don't follow their districts. But when we look at who follows the districts the most, then you have the parents and you also have the community. So right then and there, the audiences are different. So you have to think about, okay, how am I going to approach this? How am I going to engage? And that goes with that purpose, that goes with that voice. You want to have a consistent voice across the board, but it can be a little bit, and I say with caution, a little bit sillier, a little bit looser with that Instagram, which is highly visual, versus that Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, great advice. So when you think about social media, as far as like schools building those relationships and trying to encourage engagement, do you have any tips in regards to some things that schools should really try to do when building those relationships or that engagement piece?
Um, Well, that's a great question. I have so many tips. I have
Yes.
so many tips. And I always say, don't settle just for one tip.
Okay.
If I had to give one is there is no magic bullet to engagement.
Yeah.
There is no tried and true method. What works for one school district may not work for another. What works for even one school in your school district may not work for another. It is an experiment and it is about trying new things. It
Hmm.
is about seeing what the conversation response is. How did they receive it? Which is why you need to engage with purpose, why you have to monitor the conversations. But I would say it is truly just about trying
Yeah.
different tactics, different techniques, and seeing where your audiences are.
And you mentioned, one of your tips that you didn't really get to, but was the metrics. And that is, I mean, that's basically what you're saying is you got to look at what is working in your community. I know for me, we do, and I have a really small school district, Chanda. You may not, so we have like less than 300 kids, K through 12, and it's a whole district. It's one school building. And so, we have probably 30 staff members, and every week we do a staff feature that is just a simple shout out with their directory photo. And then it's just like, hey, this week it's time to recognize this person who teaches this. Basically, thanks for all you do. And we get so many great responses from that.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where, gosh, we can't pay our staff members enough money, but if we can give them some of that appreciation, and that's a weekly feature that I put out every week. It might seem repetitive, but it's like every week you're highlighting a different. Now, these are teachers, these are support staff, these are bus drivers, these are administrators. But those always do well. And so I've done that for years and years, and it's still working. And
And
it's
that's great. Because also a big factor with helping with engaging purpose is consistency. I don't see it as repetitive. I see
right.
it as you're being consistent. And as a parent in that district or even a teacher, I'm ready for Friday. Like Fridays, we're ready for something positive. We're ready for a highlight. And to see that feature on Friday showcasing an amazing work us teachers doing because we know in elementary, our kids will tell us about their day. Man, will they tell us about their day. But when you get to those high school students, good, okay. I think I've gotten that response from my 16-year-old for the past 3 years of high school. So when I see those teacher features, when I see what's going on in the classroom, I see that engagement. That's something I look forward to because I know it's coming out every Friday. That's something I look forward to because I get a peek in, and that's that human-centered storytelling, showing real people and moments, particularly the ones we as the community and as parents can't see.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm assuming, you're seeing, especially like on Instagram, the use of short form video content. So the reels. I'm seeing interviews, both by students and staff members, do really well because it just gives you a different peek into what's happening in the schools. What are you teaching around some of that short form video content?
That's very interesting that you asked that because I'm currently teaching a course right now called Digital Storytelling in Public Relations.
Awesome.
Um, I developed this course over, I would say, the past couple of months before launching it this semester because I saw the need for our students to really develop the skill of storytelling and not just being able to understand how to tell a story, but doing it, as you said, in the short form video. And my students actually have their first short form video of 90 seconds due on October 31st. And I took them through the process of why we tell stories, and it's just that reason. The best way to engage is a story. People love to hear about what's going on. It's the natural flow of conversation. We started as an oral society of telling stories. That's how we taught our history. We have technology now that allows us to put it in and capture it in a visual form. So my students right now are learning about that. They learned how a static image can be a story and how to tell a story that way. They are right now, and that's why I said it's very interesting for me to be on this side. They're doing their podcasts. They're creating 3 to 5 minute podcast audio stories. And they're doing this centered on their PR journey. And I say, even though you are juniors and seniors, you are on a journey. You're on your PR career journey. So how can you tell that in an image? How can you tell that just in voice, in an audio? And how can you tell that in a short form video? And what are those tools? What are those techniques? We're using Canva, Audacity. We're using the free tools. Let's be, because I
Yeah.
recognize just like the school districts, we have to look at the free tools and understand how to utilize those, but understanding the different angles. So it is the technical, but it's also the content. What makes a good story? How are you going to even tell your own story? And that's what they're exploring. And that's a skill they can take to whatever job they go to, that ability now to put together a story on behalf of a brand. Because the most difficult brand you have to put the story together is you.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So you talk a little bit about not, you don't say brand, you say voice. And so how can schools kind of work to create a common voice on social media if there's multiple people posting? What is your advice kind of on that?
My advice is twofold. First and foremost, you do need to have a social media plan. That first and foremost, everybody has a timeline. Everybody knows what content, what platforms. And part of that plan is having some type of style guide. What is our messaging? What is the phrases we like to use? What is our color palette?
Hmm.
I love the fact that I just keep going back. Every Friday, we know we have this posting. Who is responsible for creating that? That creates that consistency we're also looking for. So for that shared common voice, having a social media plan that includes a style guide that everybody can access, everybody has a part in, and it's something that just like a crisis communication plan, you do want to revisit every few months, every year, just to make updates, just so if new staff people have come aboard, they have access to it. They are a part now of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you can get some consistency there, but it takes a little bit of planning. Um,
It
but
does take that calendar helps so much. I love myself a good conversation calendar. Again, a content calendar, conversation calendar. Those are the best. It helps me keep organized of when to post, who's posting, and if we have to make any quick revisions because of something's going on in that social media landscape.
yeah. So it sounds like maybe do you do some consulting and working with some schools directly then to help them guide their social media, kind of plan?
I do when to keep my foot into the PR industry and really what is needed. And I just also being a mom of five, I do believe in our educational program. So I have been consulting with different school districts, charter schools, and working with I see that need. And they also have a really interesting niche into the market, really interesting voice that I think they can just explore. So I have been doing some consulting work, and I also do bring them into my classrooms and for my campaigns class as clients. So I do combine sometimes both of my worlds together, the education and the industry.
Yeah. So, with just your experience there, do you see anything that you really see working well right now? And then also, just in working with schools, what are some of them still getting wrong? Like, what are some of the biggest struggles with
Mhm.
schools that they're getting wrong when it comes to social media?
So we'll start with the negative and kind of go to the positive. And I think we mentioned this before. It's the static posting. It's just the announcement. I say flyer on the wall type of posting. When we're talking about engagement, when we're talking about really reaching our publics, it doesn't work. It's okay, to do that once in a while announcements. We have to do it. But if that's all that you're doing, if you're just using it as an afterthought, it's really not working. And I also say just ignoring and not listening to the conversations that are going on. It's really important to get off your page and to the other pages to see what's being said, to see what the concerns are. This helps build anticipation, and you can kind of get either ahead of it or not. And I talked about that in my presentation, in where school districts have used what has been said on the landscape to get ahead on social media about possible conversations. And then the other hand, when they did it and it kind of erupted. What's been working, I think, really well, and I've seen more and more schools doing, are sharing the content of their schools, sharing and showcasing not just the teachers, but showcasing the lunch staff, showcasing the custodial staff, showing those individuals who are just as valuable, just as important, and putting them really into that short form video, that 30-second clip, and that showing that interaction and how much they are beloved by the students. I like when I'm starting to see the collaboration between the districts and the schools. Uh, some districts are fairly large and have a lot of different schools, and I know it can be difficult, and I've worked with districts trying to wrangle all of them up. And I say, you don't have to wrangle them up. It goes to, yes, have a consistent plan, but really, they know their schools best. And they produce some amazing content. What the teachers produce is amazing. So instead of trying to curtail them or wrangle them, start collaborating, start sharing.
Yeah. Definitely. I love that. And it's so powerful to showcase, what is actually happening in the schools. I just want to talk a little bit about the listening part, because that was your number one tip when we started, as listen before posting. And I want to get your take on this. In some cases, not everything belongs on social media is kind of my thought. And so, you can communicate in a school district in a lot of different ways. Social media is one of them. But if you start listening into those little groups, the mom group or whatever, the community groups, and you start hearing some rumbling, is there a sign at some point that says, hey, maybe we shouldn't talk about this on social media, but we should go in a different direction? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, when you're listening and you're seeing the comments, I always say, what are the comments? Who are the comments coming from? And is it in just one particular group, or are you seeing it across multiple groups? That's where going to metrics and the measuring. One thing I did give at the conference, I had technical difficulties, so I actually had to share it later, was a scorecard. And it actually rated the comments. Were they positive? Were they negative? Were they just neutral? What is the tone? And I always say, what's the tone and what is being said and for how long? Sometimes it's just a flare up, let it go. If it's a flare up, just let it go. If it's something that's rumbling and you see it across board, it may be something to address. And that's that determination. Is it to address on the platforms, or is it something where districts can use their other channels of communication?
Mhm.
It is a balancing act. And I always say, you don't want to seem like you're spying. You don't want, it's not like, the mom peeking into the drawers. You're really just listening to the concerns. And it's like any you would do for a town hall. It's just you're able to do it 24/7 because that's what social media is.
Right.
Instead of just waiting for that monthly town hall, you can go track daily what's being said. And you can now see, okay, what do we need to address and how's the best way to address it?
Yeah. Um, how can schools ensure that social media engagement remains a priority? You kind of mentioned talking about a strategic plan. So, is there something in your strategic plan that should call out, social media and social media engagement? What would you say to that?
In my plan, I always make sure that you have people identified. Who is responsible for what? That helps so much. And I recommend by position title, not necessarily by name, because people move around.
Right.
But if you have, this is the responsibility, this is the domain, this is also the frequency. How often should this occur? That's the greatest part about having that plan in place. And again, engagement, it is extra work. It does take time. Do you, as the district, as a school, have that time to really go full force into engagement? Even posting once a week is enough, but as you said, it takes the time to develop that content. So having that plan really will help with the level of engagement and then who ultimately, what position is responsible for it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, what gets measured gets done, right? And then just making sure that you got a clear plan because schools have such an amazing story to tell, but
Yes.
sometimes it's really hard to break it down and to be like, how can we get that out there? And so, having a plan certainly helps. So you've shared a ton of great social media tips. I always like to end with like your best social media tip. So I don't know what you would say to your best social media tip for the listeners.
I think my best social media tip is it's really just to get out there and experiment, to get out there. You know your audience, you know your platforms. And sometimes the best type of engagement is just to try. Just take a funny picture of, the school raised some money to tape the principal to the wall. That's always a great photo. That's always a great moment. And instead of taking a photo, maybe just do a little video of all the kids laughing around. That brings a smile to our faces. That's something that will be shared because, hey, that's my kid, or hey, that's my teacher. And sometimes you just have to experiment. And what are other schools doing? Because what works for one school may work for another or may not. I think also with schools, what we teach our children, it's about sharing. So sometimes sharing those ideas, sharing those tips because we may not be able to do it, but you can. So
Yeah.
just try. Just
Yeah.
put the little toe in the water and try a little engagement.
Yeah. It can be scary, but it's like you're gonna learn something. So
Yes.
it's fine. Well, Chanda, thank you so much for your time today. What would be the best way if somebody had additional questions or wanted to reach out to you? What's the best way to stay connected?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Simply search Chanda Gilmore, or you can find me through the University of Delaware Communication Department's Instagram page at UCOM, UDCOM DPT Department.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll have that linked in the show notes. Can I also link up your email address for folks? Is
Yes,
that okay?
please. cgilmore@udel.edu, please.
Okay, so we'll make
And
sure
I
to
hope to
have that.
actually be at NASPR next summer too.
Okay, awesome. And where is it again? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Um, I don't remember
New,
either if it's
New
Indianapolis.
Orleans? I don't know. I feel like all the
Oh, New
conferences are,
Orleans. It's New Orleans.
it's new. Woohoo, 10 points for me.
Yes, good job. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing and thanks for what you do to build the communicators of tomorrow and today. I mean, it's really fun and I'm so glad that you were able to share this summer. So you guys definitely reach out to Chanda if you've got more questions. I hope all of her tips are like spot on. So take these into the work that you do. And until next time, you guys keep telling those stories. We'll be back with another great episode next week. Thanks, Chanda.
Thank you.